There came a time, in a small, serene village settled in the heart of the African savannah, there lived a young girl named Zawadi. She was the daughter of a hardworking farmer, a kind-hearted woman known for her exceptional beauty, grace, and intelligence. Zawadi's village was peaceful, untouched by the turbulence of the outside world, where people lived in harmony with nature. The villagers, humble and content with their way of life, worked hard to provide for their families. Zawadi's beauty was not only physical but radiated from within. Her laughter was like the sound of sweet rain, and her smile brightened the darkest days. She had inherited her mother's kindness and her father's wisdom. As a child, Zawadi would often help her mother gather water from the nearby river, carry firewood, and assist her father in the fields. She was known far and wide for her generosity, and there was no one in the village who did not love her. As she grew older, Zawadi's beauty became more pronounced. Her long, flowing hair was the color of midnight, and her eyes sparkled like the stars in the night sky. She had a slender frame and a graceful presence that made her the subject of many songs sung by the village's elders. Every evening, after the day's work, the villagers would gather around the fire, and Zawadi would sing with the elders, her voice soft and soothing. She had a gift of connecting with people, of making them feel loved and important. One day, a group of young men arrived in the village. They were not from the village, and their presence caused a stir. They were well-dressed, carrying flashy phones and wearing expensive shoes, unlike the simple clothing worn by the villagers. These young men, though outwardly charming and polite, had a darker purpose. They had come to the village seeking something far more sinister than they let on. These young men, named Kofi, Tond, and Chijok, were part of a growing trend in the city, young boys involved in internet fraud, known as Yahoo Boys, who performed rituals to acquire wealth through dark and dangerous means. They had learned the ways of using the internet to scam people out of their money, but they were not content with the riches they earned through deceit. They wanted to achieve even more. Rumors had spread among them of a powerful ritual that required the sacrifice of an innocent girl, one whose beauty could appease the gods of wealth and bring them unimaginable riches. This ritual, which they believed would allow them to rise to the top of their fraudulent empire, required the blood of a pure-hearted young woman who had not yet experienced the darkness of the world. When the young men arrived in the village, their eyes were immediately drawn to Zawadi. They had heard tales of her beauty long before they arrived. To them, she was the perfect candidate for the ritual they needed to perform. They knew that if they could capture her, they would become powerful beyond their wildest dreams. They approached Zawadi's parents with charm and flattery, pretending to be interested in learning the ways of farming and village life. They offered to help her family in exchange for lodging and food. Zawadi's parents, though wary of these strange young men, agreed. The family was struggling, and the offers of assistance were tempting. What harm could a few extra hands do? Kofi, Tond, and Chijok were patient. They knew they had to gain the trust of Zawadi and her family before they could execute their plan. Over the next few weeks, they worked hard, pretending to be kind and helpful. They would speak with Zawadi's parents, compliment her beauty, and share stories of the success they had achieved in the city. They even offered to take Zawadi to the city, promising to show her a life of luxury that no one in the village could imagine. Zawadi, innocent and eager to see more of the world, was curious. She was often entranced by the tales of the city life the young men would weave, a life of comfort and abundance. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the village was covered in darkness, the young men invited Zawadi to accompany them on a trip to the city. They promised her a grand experience, an opportunity to see the world beyond the village. Zawadi, excited by the prospect, agreed. She told her parents that she would return soon, and they, trusting her judgment, allowed her to go. The journey was long, but Zawadi did not mind. She was filled with excitement, imagining the wonders she would see. However, as they neared the outskirts of the village, a sense of unease began to creep over her. The landscape grew unfamiliar, and the road seemed to stretch on endlessly, dark and desolate. But she dismissed her fears, thinking she was just nervous about the unknown. When they finally arrived at their destination, Zawadi was led into a secluded house on the edge of a dark forest. The house was grand, with large windows and dark wooden beams, but there was something sinister about it. The air inside was thick with the smell of incense, and there was an eerie quietness to the place. She began to feel the weight of something dreadful approaching, but it was too late. As soon as she stepped inside, the young men turned on her. They grabbed her, forcefully holding her down. Zawadi struggled, her heart pounding in her chest, but they were too strong. They began chanting in a language she didn't understand, calling upon the spirits of wealth. Zawadi's cries for help echoed in the empty room, but no one could hear her. The ritual had begun. Tund, who was the leader of the group, held up a sharp knife, its blade glinting in the dim light. Zawadi's eyes filled with terror as she realized what was happening. She had been tricked. She had been lured into their trap, and now she was to be the sacrifice that would grant them power and riches. The boys did not hesitate. With a final chant, they carried out the ritual, ending Zawadi's life and spilling her blood onto the floor. In the days that followed, the village noticed that Zawadi had not returned. Her parents searched for her, but there was no trace. The young men had left the village with their wealth, their faces hidden behind the veil of darkness. Rumors began to spread that they had killed her, but no one could prove it. The village was left in mourning, unaware of the true fate of their beloved Zawadi. As for the young men, their fortunes did not last long. They quickly gained wealth, buying expensive cars, flashy clothes, and living in luxurious homes. But with each passing day, they became more restless. They had achieved everything they had ever dreamed of, yet there was an emptiness that gnawed at them. They had sacrificed an innocent life, and that blood would never wash away. The guilt began to consume them. Chijioke, the most reckless of the group, started having vivid dreams. In his nightmares, Zawadi's face appeared, her eyes filled with sorrow. She would speak to him in whispers, telling him that her soul was trapped, seeking vengeance. The more Chijioke ignored the dreams, the stronger they became. Soon, Kofi and Ton began to experience the same haunting visions. No matter how much they tried to enjoy their newfound wealth, they could not escape the wrath of the spirit they had wronged. One by one, their lives began to unravel. Kofi's business deals collapsed. Ton's family turned against him. Chijioke lost everything he had built. The wealth that had come so easily was now a curse. They found themselves tormented by the spirit of Zawadi, who had become a vengeful force, determined to make them pay for the life they had stolen. In the end, the young men's lives were destroyed, just as the elders had warned. Zawadi's spirit, with the strength of 1,000 storms, claimed their souls, and they were left with nothing but their broken bodies and shattered dreams. They had sought wealth through dark means, but in doing so, they had awakened a force that even their ill-gotten riches could not protect them from. The villagers, though they never knew the full extent of the tragedy, felt the presence of Zawadi's spirit in the winds, the rain, and the very earth beneath their feet. They mourned her loss deeply, but they also knew that the price of greed and cruelty was steep. Zawadi's tale became a cautionary story passed down through the generations. A reminder that beauty and innocence should never be used for evil, and that those who seek to harm others for their own gain will ultimately pay the price. And so, the village continued, slowly healing, but always remembering the beautiful girl who had been taken far too soon. The spirit of Zawadi, however, was never truly gone. She lived on in the hearts of those who remembered her, a shining example of goodness in a world that had tried to take it away. And though the young men were gone, their story remained, a haunting reminder of the cost of blood money.